Welcome to The Green Urbanist, the podcast for urbanists fighting climate change. I'm Ross. Hello everyone, welcome to this 4-part series on the role of landscape and urban nature in creating resilient, sustainable and healthy places. Over the next 4 weeks, I'll be releasing short weekly episodes featuring interviews with landscape practitioners that highlight great case studies in landscape design and discuss the wider role of these interventions in green urbanism. The interviews were recorded at the Landscape Institute Awards 2023. Thank you so much to the Landscape Institute for inviting me along and organising these conversations. This first episode features a conversation with Landscape Institute President-elect Carolin Göhler. The focus of this chat was on responding to the climate and biodiversity crises through landscape interventions and some of the work the Landscape Institute is doing to push this forward. After the interview, I share some more information specifically about nature-based climate adaptation in cities, so stick around for that. Hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, I'm Carolin Göhler, President-elect of the Landscape Institute.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for being with me here for this interview. I'm really interested in how the landscape profession can sort of respond to the climate and biodiversity crises and the important role that landscape has, particularly in cities, in responding to that. Do you have any thoughts sort of generally on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a lot the Landscape Institute and its professionals can do. And we work on a different array. I think maybe first of all we should say that landscape architects are involved in any green space you may have, whether it's a balcony box or a countryside, or whether it's a wind turbine farm or, urban regeneration projects. So we're really involved in every sort of green bit in everyone's life. And I think it's really important for us as a profession to step up to the challenge of climate change and the biodiversity emergency. And we do that in lots of different ways. I mean, obviously we plant trees or such, but as many people sponsor trees nowadays, we also manage the whole landscapes because giving just money to plant a tree is not enough. You also need to manage the landscape after and look after the trees. Especially when they're young, you have to water them in some form, and we don't have much water at times, so you need to mulch them and look after them in a very good sort of way. So from a sustainability point of view, obviously we try to green as much as we can, avoid hard surfaces, or even if we have hard surfaces, we work to introduce what we call sustainable drainage systems, where we actually capture the rain water, prevent it going initially into the waterways and flooding rivers and streams and such. We're trying to hold it on the land and then let it slowly sort of trickle out, and that really retains moisture. We can do water harvesting and all these sort of different things to really retain the green cover we want for people to enjoy, because it's climate change and sustainability in that sense is really also for the health and well-being of people predominantly, obviously, but we also need to look after our nature. And landscape professionals really understand the sort of interrelationship between perhaps nature, people, and what we say place in a sense. And from our point of view, it's really that we train and educate our professionals well. We also update and provide guidance, which are for other professionals, but also for the public in general, to understand what difference they can sort of make in the sort of spaces and where they live. But probably some of the function we do, we also influence government in some ways, where we write good guidelines, which they can also then look at and incorporate at any sort of regulation and other work government does. And we're trying to sort of influence even politicians to some extent to look at the environment and to cherish it. So there's a lot of array we can do to do the climate change response. And from Institute's point of view is that we also ourselves want to be sort of carbon zero initially by 2029 when we celebrate our centenary. But obviously that is not when the story ends, because obviously what we need to be in future is also to be what we call carbon positive. So actually making an enhanced and positive contribution to our environment and hopefully help to abate the adverse effects of climate change.
Yeah, I think it's really clear to me like what a key role landscape design has in nature-based solutions, in climate adaptation, that kind of thing. What are the sort of biggest challenges you think the profession is facing at the moment in terms of making this stuff happen at scale?
It's interesting. I've had the question just been asked by someone else, and I think it's sort of various basis, I think you could say. I think we need to train more landscape professionals and more younger people or career changers to take up jobs in the environmental professions. That's, whether you're a horticulturist or whether you're a water engineer or such, we need more people to take really interest. And I think we need to inspire the younger and people more what we do, and also shout about more what we do. And I think it's really, really important. We need to also make sure that government understands that this education is absolutely crucial for the well-being of all of us, and support our universities and colleges, giving education to students and apprentices. I think that is sort of the core sort of thing, and I think we need to sort of more promote what we do in many ways, and that's what we're trying to do. So you're talking to us today when we're celebrating our 30th anniversary of the Landscape Awards. It's really akin to the Sterling Prize from the architects, and they're absolutely fantastic schemes, and the imagination and problem solving you see in these schemes is absolutely staggering and really wonderful to see, and it's very inspiring. And I think we need to just shout about and talk more to people, I think. But there are lots of issues the profession has to face, we need just really good team people to come along. And what we're actually also doing, we're working much more as a family. So not just landscape architects or landscape managers or landscape scientists, as this used to be many decades ago. We've really broadened out, and we're bringing in urbanists, and we're bringing also some of our suppliers or academic specialists or everyone else who really has a passion and great professionalism in landscape. And because we feel with our partners and affiliated organizations, we all can make a difference together and actually share expertise in lots of different ways, whether it's people management to actually managing projects. But we also know that as the Landscape Institute based in the UK, we have also international outreach. I recently was at the International Federation of Landscape Architects in Europe, and it was really lovely to see them, and they all use our information to really update and advise also their governments. And for us it's really important, and there's a similar federation which is worldwide, so it's for us really important to share that knowledge and to be there where we can. As a very small organization, we're doing a lot.
Great. Maybe as a final question, how do you see the profession changing over the coming decades, if at all, or maybe just getting stronger?
I think it's changing all the time, and I think that's our success of the profession. It's adaptation to new things, new problems, new issues, and always looking out for how better and cleverer we maybe can achieve things, and bringing everyone involved in landscape and landscape management along. I think we have seen in the with the advance of the computer, we have computer-aided design, and it wasn't just 2D dimensional drawings. It is now 3D. You can do very easily sort of project your ideas in absolutely incredible way, and in film format, and the technology gets better and better. But I think everybody's talking about AI, and I think yes, artificial intelligence is already out there. I know architects, for example, they use it to write specifications for projects, and hopefully we can use AI for making certain maybe dreary parts of the job more successful and more easy and quickly done. But I think training our people and also having the verbal communication and being together as a community is very important, which I don't think technology can take away. But we need to be careful where we use it and what we do. But there's ongoingly new things coming in. We probably use more solar panels to light up spaces in the evenings, or there will be lots of different ways where I think technology will help and make it hopefully cheaper for people to enjoy green spaces, really, and hopefully also benefiting nature in different ways. Yeah.
So there you go. There's my conversation with Carolin Göhler. I think she did a really good job of setting the scene for this series and the incredible range of ways that landscape and landscape design and landscape practitioners are really important for our response to climate change in urban areas. As many of you will know, something that I'm very passionate about is climate adaptation, and I think that's a really important part of this larger conversation around landscape within cities. And so for the next couple of minutes, I'd like to read out to you an article from my newsletter that was published back in March of 2023. Many of you may not have seen it, so I thought this is a perfect place to share that as an audio recording. So the title of this is Climate Adaptation with Urban Nature. It's published on the Green Urbanist Weekly newsletter. And if you'd like to get onto that and receive a short, succinct article about everything related to green urbanism every Wednesday, get it weekly, just follow the link in the episode description and sign up to that. It would be great to have you on board, and it's also, you can leave comments under the articles and interact in that way, so it's a really nice way of sort of having a bit more of a two-way conversation rather than just listening to me. Okay, here we go with the article. As we find ourselves at 1.2 degrees Celsius of global average warming and rising, the effects of climate change are becoming obvious. Local weather is becoming more extreme and unpredictable. In 2022, heat waves and record-breaking temperatures scorched Europe, while 1/3 of Pakistan was buried under floods. Over decades, the focus of climate action has been on mitigating climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions. However, as greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise globally, we are now forced to adapt to a new climate reality. Climate adaptation involves changes to behaviour or infrastructure in response to climate change. You might think of flood defences and storm shelters, but adaptation can be much more biophilic. Enhancing urban nature is a proven effective method of minimising heat waves and floods. Ecosystem-based adaptation is a way of working with nature to reduce the impact of severe weather while providing many other benefits to local people. Cities by their design are especially vulnerable to extreme weather. Concrete, steel and glass absorb heat and release them slowly at night. In winter, this can actually be beneficial as it keeps temperatures at a more comfortable level and reduces heating bills and associated emissions. In the summer, however, this urban heat island effect can often raise temperatures in cities by 10 degrees Celsius higher than the surrounding countryside. This can turn a hot day into a dangerous situation for vulnerable people, and sadly many elderly and sick people do die during heat waves every summer around the world, especially in cities where escape from the heat can be almost impossible. Cities are also particularly vulnerable to flooding. In natural areas, when rivers overflow or the rainwater pours, water slowly sinks into the soil. However, cities are covered in impermeable surfaces like concrete and asphalt, which results in flooding when drainage infrastructure gets overwhelmed. This is happening more and more as climate change intensifies, with a resulting loss of life and property. There's a clear solution to these problems: replacing urban human-made materials with soil and vegetation. Urban trees reduce temperatures by creating shade and adding moisture to the air in a process called evapotranspiration. A study of Baltimore City, just to use one example, which is a city in Maryland, USA, found that the city's tree cover saves the lives of over 500 people annually by reducing heat stress. Restoring nature outside of cities can also help. In Southeast Asia, restoring coastal mangrove forest has been found to protect communities from storms and coastal erosion. And just think about all the other benefits that these ecosystems bring in terms of biophilia, biodiversity, food and recreation. Life-climate interactions. A warming climate is a double-edged sword for trees and plants in general. A study published in 2017 found that urban trees have grown 14 to 25% more quickly since 1960, possibly due to an increase in temperatures and carbon dioxide in the air. This is an example of a negative feedback loop, nature's way of keeping balance. As carbon dioxide levels increase, photosynthesizing plants simply absorb more and grow quicker to pull it out of the atmosphere. However, since we're emitting carbon dioxide at a much faster than normal rate and deforesting the planet simultaneously, this effect won't be enough to mitigate dangerous climate change. In fact, we may be heading towards tipping points that cause mass declines in tree species as their habitable range shifts further towards the poles. If that happens, then cities could lose many shade-giving, flood-reducing trees just as we need them most. This is leading some scientists to call for the planting of tree species from warmer climates that are heat and drought resistant, advice that flies in the face of ecologists' mantra for prioritising native species for biodiversity benefits. It's clear that there will be no easy answers as we enter a new climate era. 3 levels of adaptation. The geographer Mark Pelling describes 3 kinds of climate adaptation: resilience, transition, and transformation. This framing can help us make sense of our adaptation options. Resilience is the first level and can be defined as bouncing back to normal after experiencing shocks and stresses. For cities, resilience is about maintaining stability through a changing climate so life can go on as normal. Investing in ecosystem-based adaptation like urban tree planting can certainly contribute to this. However, we must ask ourselves the question, if business as usual got us into this mess, why do we want to keep going as normal? This is where level 2 of adaptation comes in, transition. Transition is about incremental change that guides us from our current state to something better or something preferable. For urban nature, that might mean an increase in urban agriculture and allotments, or local residents taking the initiative to green their neighbourhoods. An example of this is the greening permit in Paris. To deliver on their ambitious urban greening targets, the city of Paris offers a special permit to residents that gives them permission to take stewardship of a local green space to grow food, plant trees, and otherwise improve its ecological richness. This successful idea could easily be replicated by cities worldwide as a way to transition towards a greener city while offering urbanites some much-needed nature connection. As the climate crisis intensifies, there are now growing calls for society to skip to the 3rd level of adaptation, which is transformation. Transformation involves radical changes to our lifestyles, systems, and values to create a truly sustainable way of life. Proponents of transformation, or transformative adaptation, as it's sometimes called, argue that resilience will only lock us into unsustainable status quo, and transition is too slow to avert the worst of climate change. Once we start thinking transformatively, we realise that there are many more options open to us than we usually think. Transformation invites us to ask fundamental questions like, why do we need lawns? Couldn't we turn parks into biodiverse forests? What if we banned cars and rewilded streets? What if every neighbourhood had a local food growing cooperative that everyone contributed to and benefited from? What would happen if we designated our city as a national park? Could we capture rainwater locally and use it during periods of drought? These what-if questions may sound fantastical, but real examples exist for all of them, sometimes at small scales, which means they are possible. It's just a matter of opening our minds, thinking bigger, and embracing the transformations that we know are necessary. That's it for the article. If you enjoyed that and would like to get some more of that straight into your inbox, with the addition of some photographs and images to support the text, then do consider signing up to Green Urbanist Weekly free newsletter. The link is in the episode description. It would be great to have you. Keep an eye out for next week's episode, and just make sure you're subscribed or following the podcast wherever you're listening so you don't miss that. Okay, thanks very much.